Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Audit and Standards Committee. I've received apologies from Rebecca Lewis, and I think everybody else is here, so take that as it is. Does anybody have any declarations of interest that they need to make? No? Okay, thanks. Item number 3 then is the minutes of the previous meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read those, and is everybody in agreement that they're a true and accurate record of the meeting? Yep, okay, thank you. Item number 4 then is the external audit plan for 2024-25, and Richard's kindly come to go through that for us. So whenever you're ready, Richard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think you introduced it there expertly for me. So yeah, the audit plan for 24-25, the format hopefully is, well, it's our second year now as your external auditor, so the format of this is consistent with what you've received last year. It doesn't seem 5 minutes ago since we finished last year's audit, so hopefully as we progress through this cycle, we'll get more into back to the sort of the traditional cycle of finishing the audits in the same year that the accounts relate to. The plan basically sets out the key risk areas that we're going to focus on when performing the external audit. It's indicative at this moment in time because we've still got some planning and risk assessment work to undertake and complete. It also sets out the materiality levels that we work to, which are basically our threshold of error that we're willing to accept within the accounts before we say they are not accurate. So that's set out on page 3, 1.4 million being materiality, but you'll see that we actually work to a much lower threshold of £70,000 in terms of reporting issues through to committee. The risks are set out on the following pages. The risk profile's pretty much consistent with the prior year. Focus on valuation of assets, whether it be land and buildings or investment property, because they are judgmental areas. They are where you engage valuers to support you in producing the numbers that end up in the financial statements. And the other risk area being over pensions, and that's for a similar reason. Again, you use actuaries to support you in producing the numbers wherever there's they apply judgment, they apply estimation, and wherever that flows through into financial statements, as really small differences can have significant impacts on the numbers. So the 3 significant risk areas, management override is a risk that we would have on every audit. It's mandated by auditing standards. So the 3 significant risks are consistent with last year. We've got a focus on investment property as well. You've got the new car park that's been developed. We think it's going to be categorised actually within property, plants and equipment, land and buildings, but we just need to work that through in terms of where the valuers end up in terms of its categorisation and classification. And then the final focus area is adoption of IFRS 16, which is a technical lease accounting standard. And again, it just is around how leases are classified within the financial statements. So nothing really to write home about in terms of the risk profile. We'll undertake the audit in line with the timetable that we've agreed with management. The core audit team's exactly the same as it was last year, so we've got that continuity of knowledge, and we can declare that we're independent from the council, which is our other obligation. The other element of our work, so aside from the financial statements, is looking at value for money. We've got to undertake a risk assessment in terms of value for money, which will, and the output from that will come to the next audit committee when we've completed that work. So at the moment, that's a work in progress, and I'd expect that to follow in due course. I think that's probably sort of the main areas that I need to cover within this report, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Richard. Any questions on that? No? Go on, Joan.
I just want to say, for auditors, you make things very readable, and thank you for that, because it's not always easy for you or easy for us to understand. And thank you.
Excellent. We'll give you a crystal mark for that. Okay. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, then thank you very much for that, Richard. And we'll move on to the external audit plan. Sorry, the internal audit strategy and plan. Yeah, and Alex is going to start off with that for us. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to present to the committee the 2025-26 internal audit strategy and plan for this committee's consideration and approval. The internal audit plan has been compiled through discussions with all service directors and the chief executive to understand their key risks, operational challenges, and areas where internal audit can add value. A well-established risk assessment methodology, which is detailed in Appendix A of the audit plan, is then used to ensure areas of significant risk are given appropriate coverage with the resources available to us. The audit plan is made up of 341 days, which includes 25 days for the management of the audit function, 40 days for counter-fraud activities, and these activities are based on CIPFA's counter-fraud code of practice, and that counter-fraud plan is in Appendix C of the audit plan. And then there are 276 days for assurance and consultancy work. The entire plan is detailed in Appendix B of the plan and includes a proposed scope for each area of audit activity. Not only must the audit plan be risk-based, but it must also align with the Council's aims and priorities. And to demonstrate this, the covering report for the audit plan not only highlights how the plan will address key risks such as local government reorganisation, but also how it aligns to the Council's plan and transformational programmes. I won't go through each of the audits in that plan, because like I said, they are all in Appendix B. However, what I'd like to do is just highlight for you some of the key audits in support of those risks and Council priorities. So from our risk assessment, the 5 top risk areas which we've included in the audit plan are local government reorganisation and devolution, the regeneration schemes, and these cover the redevelopments at Midway Car Park, Astley Place and Rycroft. And we've got cyber incident preparedness and response. We have the new customer relationship management system, and this is a key component of the technology strategy, which involves the procurement and implementation of a new customer relationship management system. And then we have the workforce sustainability, and that's around the new workforce strategy. In support of the Council's plan, the Newcastle Partnership Community Safety Audit and Workforce Sustainability Audits will support Priority 1. The Sustainable Environment Strategy will support Priority 2, and the Regeneration Audit will support Priority 4. With regards to the transformational programmes, our work on the new CRM system, the move to Azure, and the new fleet management system support the One Digital programme. Further supporting this programme indirectly are audits on cyber incident preparedness, as I mentioned, and also third-party access. These will provide cyber security assurance. An audit on the Sustainable Environment Strategy is also included, and this supports the One Green programme. And then as part of our cyclical timetable for key financial systems, this year we will undertake audits on budgetary control, debtors, e-payments, main accounting and council tax. And finally, there are a number of governance audits in there, including corporate decision-making arrangements and compliance with the Code of Practice on Good Governance for Local Authority Statutory Officers. These audits have been included because they'll ensure that governance frameworks remain robust and adaptable during LGR. I'm happy to take any questions on that proposed audit plan for the year.
Alex, do we have any questions? Mike, go on.
Can you go back to when you said what audits would support the local government reorganisation and devolution? I missed the first part of that.
Which ones will support it? Let me just get to that, please. Just bear with me, sorry. So for LGR supporting that, we've got some time set aside for LGR developments, workforce sustainability, and corporate decision making, as well as the other governance one around the code of practice on good governance for statutory officers. So there's 4 audits there, I think, that support kind of LGR and supporting the council through that.
Through you, Chair. I'm just looking at so are they is that separate work than the 5 days that you devoted under the legal side as well?
Yes, so that 5 days, that's just to keep abreast of topics that it's coming out as part of LGR. Clearly, it's still early days. We don't know what's going to happen in the next year, so we've put some time together just to give us that time to provide support if needed. And those 4 audits there that I mentioned are trying to just ensure that the council's got good governance arrangements in the year ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I go as far as to say that that's maybe a little low, but I think as we get closer and closer, because if we look towards, I suspect, nobody knows yet, but it's 2028, well, that's going to be huge, and it's something that we probably need to be putting more than the 5 days in. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, so if I can respond to that 5 days, the plan is adaptable. If we need more time, we can certainly, none of this is fixed. Through our discussions with CLT, Sarah, and coming back to audit committee, if we feel that needs more time, then we can adjust that. That might mean removing some of audits that we considered lower risk at the time, but certainly the plan isn't set in stone for the year, so we can change if needed.
This is something that's happened in the past, hasn't it, where things have come to light. The plan's been tweaked slightly to take account of whatever is necessary at the time. So as long as there's flexibility there, that's the main thing. Are there any other questions, Sarah?
So if I could just make a comment as well. In addition to the internal audit plan, we're also kind of very conscious about this topic for external audit as well. Yeah. So obviously myself and Richard are going to be kind of following this throughout the next 2, 3, 4 years, however long it is. And as you say, as we get further down the process, yes, more time will be needed to be spent on this topic.
Okay, Joan, did you want to say something?
Well, switch it up. Just to comment, when people are doing estimates of time, especially on this sort of thing, I think it's a moment in time that you estimate how long it will take. And there is a certain, am I right in saying there is a flexibility for adjustment all the way through year on year?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing.
Okay, as a committee, we need to approve the internal audit plan and also agree to receive quarterly reports on the delivery of the assignments. Are we all happy to do that? Yep. Okay, thank you. Item number 6 then is Alex again, and it's the internal audit charter. So whenever you're ready, please, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. So again, being presented again is the internal audit charter for 2025. The Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015 include the statutory requirement for the provision of an effective internal audit function. One of the ways we demonstrate an effective function is with compliance to the global internal audit standards in the UK public sector. This new standard came into effect on the 1st of this month, replacing the previous public sector internal audit standards. Standard 6.2 requires the Chief Internal Auditor to develop a charter which sets out, as a minimum, the purpose of internal audit, its commitment to adhering to the standards, a mandate, including the scope and types of service provided, as well as responsibilities and expectations to support the internal audit function, and the internal audit function's position and reporting relationships. The revised 2025 charter being presented this evening, which we have developed based on a recommended template by the Chartered Institute of Internal Auditors, takes into account changes in requirements from the new standards, as well as SITFA's code of practice on the governance of internal audit in the UK local government. The 25 charter remains largely similar to last year's charter, but I'd like to draw your attention to the mandate. The mandate sets out internal audit's authority, which is implied by Section 151 of the Local Government Act 1972, and is specifically required by the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015, and also importantly, by its direct reporting relationship to this committee and to the corporate leadership team. The Charter also sets out the oversight requirements of this committee, which includes the approval of this Charter and the audit strategy and plan. Any questions on the Charter?
Anybody got any questions on the Charter?
The difference between the two, but these party people, it's a chartered accountant.
Okay, in that case then, if there are no questions on it, are we happy as a committee to move the recommendation, which is to endorse the internal audit charter for this particular year, which incorporates various audit standards, and also for myself and the chief auditor executive to sign the document? Okay, very good, thank you. Item number 7 then is the corporate risk management report, and Sarah's going to give us the lowdown on that. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the annual review of the corporate risk management report. So every year at this particular meeting, we bring back the corporate risk management policy and strategy. The policy and strategy outlines the Council's role in providing the risk management function, including recognising that good risk management practice is an integral part of the management responsibilities, recognises that risk management can be used as a valuable tool at corporate level as well as operational level. It's committed to manage all of its activities in a way in which minimises risk to people, property, services and its finances, and recognises that effective risk management is an integral part of the robust performance management and good governance within the Council. This report asks that you accept the reviewed risk management policy and strategy for 25-26. There have been no major changes to the strategy. Should it be approved at this evening's meeting, then the Chief Executive and the leader will sign the policy statements. So happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any questions on it? No? Okay, in that case then, are we all happy to accept the reviewed risk management policy and strategy and also approve it so that it can be signed off? And the other thing finally is obviously we have to note our own responsibility in relation to risk management. So if we're happy with all that, yep. Okay, thank you. Item number 8 then is the National Fraud Initiative. So that's back to Alex. We looked at this, I think, in a bit more detail last year, so most of you probably be familiar with it.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, as you said, as previously reported, the NFI is a data matching exercise designed to detect fraud and error by comparing data held by over 1,000 different public and private businesses. It runs every 2 years, and during 2024, the Council submitted data sets highlighted in section 1.2 of this report. In December, we received the results of the exercise, and a total of 200 data matches have been provided for further investigation. Those matches are highlighted in section 2.2 of the report. Internal Audit's counter-fraud manager is now going to work with the Council to agree an approach to reviewing these matches, which will then be reported back to the NFI. And once this review is complete, a further update will be provided to the committee. Thank you.
Alex, do we have any questions on this? No?
So there will be a second report to this?
Yes, so once the Council's looked at the data matching, the results of that we'll present back, yes.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Alex. So we just need to note that we're participating in this, and I think it's a good thing. So, number 9 then is back to Sarah, which is the counter fraud arrangements for 2025-26. So.
Thank you. Again, it's that annual review of our counter fraud arrangements for 2025-26. So the policies that we've reviewed in order to come back to the committee are the anti-fraud and the anti-corruption framework, the fraud response plan, the whistleblowing policy, and the anti-money laundering policy. There have been no major changes to the policy from when we set them last year. The council continues to use has a subscription with Protect, which is in relation to whistleblowing. Protect are an independent legal charity who've had 20 years experience of running confidential helplines for employees and members. So we're continuing that subscription with them this year. But like I said, there's been no major changes to the policies from last year. Happy to take any questions if anyone's got any.
Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any questions, Mike?
I'm not going to let Sarah go home this early. It's just not happening. Is there a template that this is driven by? Does this come from Sitford? Does it come from some chartered institute? Yeah.
Yeah, so there are guidelines within Sitford, the code of practice that we review. Obviously, there's various legislations around corporate fraud. We take all of those into consideration while we are compiling the policies for us, and closely working obviously with Staffordshire County Council for the fraud kind of service cover, as it were, with those as well. So yes.
Just occurs to me when you're doing this sort of various risk management and the counter fraud and so on, it helps sometimes to do, when you've got the data, to do a comparative analysis. That was then, look how much better we are and so on. Will that sort of thing be incorporated?
Yeah, so as Alex referred to in the previous report, the NFI data collecting report, where it kind of reviews data that various different organisations have got, and they kind of match that data. So if somebody is doing something fraudulent, it's probably going to pop up on 2 or 3 different organisations' data capture, and we can use that data to either not use those suppliers anymore or investigate further as to whatever that fraud is. Alongside that, we've obviously got lots of fraud initiatives that we work with Staffordshire County Council for things like single person's council tax discount that they might be applying for. And so there's lots of different work streams around fraud and, obviously safeguarding the council against any of those work streams, which we work with the county to do.
I take it there's some very simple inbuilt triggers that are in place that would highlight where there's a problem like that.
Yeah, so our systems will pick up something unusual. So if we had an invoice going through our system which was unusually high, obviously there's various different authorities that has to go through, and if it was, usually have to come through myself to sign off as a final sign off. And if it was a company that, or a project that I wasn't aware of, then I would be flagging those questions up. If it was that our council tax or our business rates, for example, they have triggers and processes in place for those types of fraud to be highlighted and triggered through those. So yes, there's multiple different triggers and processes throughout all our service areas, which safeguard us against any potential fraud.
Thank you. Yes, go on, Phil.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there mandatory training around anti-fraud and corruption for all staff?
Yeah, we've got training. We've had quite a few different training packages in the past, which we've had external providers come in and actually do training with us and our staff. we are probably getting round to that point where it's refresher time. But we've got multiple online mandatory training for staff to do in all various different areas, and fraud is one of them.
Okay, thanks.
So can I just add to that? So I've recently looked at the housing benefit audit that was put together for the 24-25 internal audit plan, and part of that was looking around how staff trained around fraud and how they might, what kind of fraud awareness they have, and what kind of checks they're doing to pick up on kind of things like housing benefit fraud as well. So it's something that we look into as well as part of our audits.
Joan.
Thank you, Chair. If it's any help to Councillor Rees, on page 4, under the culture, it talks about in-house training of fraud, deception, that sort of thing that is ongoing. God, that shows I've read my papers, doesn't it?
Bit of one-upmanship there, eh? Thanks. Do we have any other questions in relation to this? No? In that case, then are we happy to note then that we've got the 4 items as listed in the recommendations? Yep. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Item number 10 then is the work programme. Does anybody have any comments in relation to the ongoing work programme? Yeah.
Joking aside, I mean, I'm not sure there's a way around it, so it might not be impossible. I'm looking at the timetable, there is no way around it. But bringing all those reports tonight, 197 pages worth, is difficult, especially for non-specialists. So if there's the opportunity to split some of them, but I mean, again, it looks difficult. I accept that, but I don't know. It seems a lot of what I don't want us to do as a committee is just wave stuff through, and we've got a lot of time for the various officers, and be it internal or external. There's no question there, but at the same time, we are tasked with a job, and it sometimes feels when there's, I don't know, for the sake of argument, 7 or 8 different sets of policies and strategies all on the same night, they all tend to blend into each other.
Unfortunately, it's that kind of start of a new financial year, and it's that, you know, time of year reviewing policies, new audit plans starting for the year. Obviously, the committee we don't have meetings every month. If we had a meeting in March, maybe we could have split these up a little bit. So we could have brought maybe the fraud policies maybe in March, and then obviously the internal and external audit plans at this meeting. But with being every quarter, I'm struggling to kind of think how we could maybe, you know, move that and appease obviously when they need to be approved for, ready for that particular year. I'll take your comments on board though. If there's anything that we think of, you know, as we're moving through that we can try and split it up a little bit, then we will. I think if the policies had lots of major changes in compared to the previous year, then I think, yes, that would be a little bit more of a valid comment, as in, you know, if we were spending sort of 3 or 4 hours going through each policy because lots and lots of things have changed within those policies. Luckily for us, not a lot has changed compared to the previous year. So, but yeah, if there's anything we can do in year to try and reduce the amount of reports that we have for this particular meeting, I think this is the worst. This April meeting is the worst one, isn't it? Really, with all the revised policies coming to us. But yeah, I'll keep it in mind.
I accept that, and you know, I've got a finance background as well, but I would never say to the committee, well, actually, there's only a few things that changed, so it doesn't really matter if you haven't read all 197 pages. And I know you didn't say that. I know, but at the same time, just saying, I hate it if we went away from tonight thinking, well, there's only a few things changed, and it doesn't really matter. They haven't gone through every page. We should look at it as fresh every year. I'm not inviting everybody to do that because I think that would be a test. But do we want to get into and I don't want to start an argument, but is the number of meetings in the calendar enough to do this in a balanced way? I'm guessing we're maybe one short, but I'm also not pushing desperately to have an extra meeting. I'm just putting it out there that it may be that this particular meeting needs to be split, so that all the strategies and all the plans don't have to be on the same night.
If I could just come back on that, that really isn't what I said, and that really isn't what I mean. My name is kind of all over these policies, so it's really important that these policies are right and that we have to, we as an authority, we need to stick to these policies. I was just trying to make the point that if there was a huge amount of changes in, I mean, the papers are sent out a week in advance. If there's a huge amount of changes in these, then there's a week there for members to kind of come and discuss anything that they're not sure about, and look over those reports prior to this meeting so that they understand any changes, so we can have that discussion about those changes. I was just trying to make the point that it's the start of the financial year. We have all of these policies that we need to review, the plans in place that we obviously we need to kick off the new financial year with. And I certainly was not meaning to sound flippant about what the policies contain, because they are extremely important, and it's how an authority safeguards its, the public money. So that isn't what I was trying to say. Thank you.
Waiting for a while, Mark.
Yeah, I was wanting to leap in to defend our officer, because I think I understood what we were being told. And indeed, in a previous question to the committee, Councillor Stubbs said, "Oh, what's changed in this?" I was going to ask what's changed. It is germane to focus on those things that are novel and those things that our officers are putting in front of us that have changed from the previous year. But on the other hand, he does make a compelling argument for an extra meeting in March, and I'd be delighted to come along. I think I speak for the entire Conservative group when I can say, no, we have read all the papers tonight and we have understood all the papers. And if I, as a member of the committee, have been quiet, it's because I'm sitting next to Councillor Wheeldon, whose expertise is unmatched and who reaches the proper points of consideration before I can even get there. Thank you, Chair.
Before you speak, Jonah, I mean, another thing that's relevant is that there are several people who've been on the committee for some time. If we were all new, that would make a massive difference, wouldn't it? And I take your point entirely. There's a lot of reading there, as I've confessed to other people. It took its toll on me when I was going through. But I think we have to bear in mind whether we want to deal with it in one meeting because of the timeliness of it, or whether we actually split it, which then brings about potential other problems with us having to do it later than we would want to or earlier than we would want to. So it's a bit of swings and roundabouts. But anyway, Joan, you go ahead, please.
Okay. You've taken the words out of my mouth for one of the points I want to make, which is there is a consistency of membership of this committee. I don't think anyone would wave anything through. I think everyone does the homework. It's certainly been an eye-opener for me since I joined the committee, in that there is a lot to read. But every single corporate and financial body that I've worked with, and one of them was in the hotbed of finance in Hong Kong for quite some years, at this time of year, everything is front-loaded because it is an annual thing, and you can't do it any other way. If you lagged and sort of drip-fed it, then some things would miss a critical moment when it should have been dealt with, and there was a protocol or a procedure or a strategy to deal with it, and that would then be have us open to criticism. I don't think that would be appropriate. And I actually agree with Councillor Holland that if we need another meeting, Councillor Stubbs, at your invitation and advice, then so be it. We'll have another one in March.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, again, I don't think you were being flippant at all. I thought you were being flippant, and I don't think that at all. But I do think, even if it's, say, 1 week in between, and I don't know if that will put massive pressure on what would probably be the policy and the plans that we could have the week before, and then the external KPMG, the things like that. The normal week that we're in now, that might work. I don't know. It's all well and good saying that we're all long in the tooth, and we are, as it happens. And we're probably the most stable committee in the council. But I sometimes think that we could do better, and not that we're letting things through, that we could balance things better. And I understand, you know, I've got a finance background. I know that March, April is the busiest time of the year. I get that. But I think if we could just, even if we had a week's break in between the two to analyse the things separately, I think it would be advantageous to everybody.
Not to me.
I was just thinking about the timing of things, because if it was that we tried to kind of put another committee meeting in March, obviously we need to consider the calendar of meetings anyway, because obviously there's various other committee meetings that run through March, and it's quite difficult to say we'll add another committee meeting. For this particular meeting, maybe we could consider having we publish the reports 2 weeks in advance or something. Would that be a bit more useful if there was a little bit more time to, you know, review the policies and the plans? If we did it a little bit earlier, we still had the one meeting, but you had a bit of a lengthier time to review the reports, as a suggestion.
Okay, well, maybe you can have a look at that and just see if that's possible. I mean, even if they came out in 2 tranches or something like that, I think it doesn't necessarily generate a huge amount of discussion, this particular meeting. But I do get the point that, you know, there is a huge amount of stuff to read, and everybody's only got a limited amount of time. So I think maybe, you know, that is a worthwhile suggestion. Did you want to say something else, Joan?
I don't know whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever it happens to be, 2 months or whatever. It's like I used to say to the advocacy students and law students, there are no penalties for looking at something early.
Except that you've forgotten it by the time you get to the meeting. But, yeah. Okay, well, if Sarah takes that away and, you know, perhaps is able to have a look at that. Does anybody have any other comments on that aspect? No? Okay, well, I've not been notified of any urgent business. So thank you all for attending, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.